everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a little bit more of a serious video. Not that I haven't posted enough to be like, this is a serious video, but whatever. So, I was watching YouTube earlier today because that's literally all I do besides playing Overwatch. And I came across this video called How I Met My Abusive Ex-Boyfriend, and it's by Illymation, and I'll have it linked in the description. It made me think of this story, and it's pretty serious, and it's about how I dated an online predator when I was 11? Yeah, I was 11. So, yeah. I guess I'll just get right into it because there's really nothing I can say beforehand. So yeah, I guess let's just get right into it. When I was 11, I was a very weird kid. Like, I've always been a weird kid, but I was especially odd. I was the kid that like said derp all the time, and yeah. So I didn't have that many friends, but I loved this online game called Town of Salem. It's basically a game where you get assigned a role, and there's like mafia members and serial killers and then town members, and the mafias have to kill all the town members, and the serial killer has to kill the mafia and the town members have to kill all the bad people. So it's like a role-playing game, kind of. It's like a strategy game. If you're interested, I'll also link that down in the description. So it's pretty fun. I don't play it that much anymore because of what happened. So, because I'm kind of wary of it happening again. So, I was playing one day, and this guy, okay, so you get to name yourself whatever you want. Like, you have a username, but then in the game you can name yourself whatever you want. So, like, if my username was I'm a Howlter, which mine is, I could name myself Antarctica in the actual, like, game server. So, there was this guy that had named himself Jon Snow. I don't remember what mine was. I don't think it's relevant, but just remember that his name was Jon Snow. I think that's a Game of Thrones reference. I'm guessing it is. So, this guy messages me during the game, and we're talking about the game and like the strategies and stuff. Most of this earlier memory is like fuzzy because this was 3 or 4 summers ago. So yeah, I don't really remember it that well. We were talking, and then the game was over, but we like kept in contact. So we kept talking, and we were talking, and he was really nice to me, and I was like, hey mom, I made a friend online, because we used to have a desktop in our, on our counter, like our island counter thing, so I would play it there, and she read our conversation, and she was like, he doesn't seem like he's your age. I was like, well, it doesn't matter, Ma. Age is just a number. Which is not true. And she was like, yeah, I don't really want you talking to him, though. And I was like, a rebel? So I kept talking to him. And eventually, he was like, well, how old are you? And I was 11, right? So I wasn't even a teenager yet. I don't even know if I can be classified as a preteen. I think I was counted as a preteen. So I was just a tiny little tween. So, like, it's not like I knew that much about the dangers. Or, I knew the dangers, but it was one of those things where you're just like, oh, that would never happen to me, though. So, I told this guy 14, okay, because I wanted to seem cool. And saying that you're 11 isn't exactly the, like, most, I guess, it's not exactly the most inviting thing to teenagers that they don't want to play with an 11-year-old. I said I was 14. He was like, oh, that's cool, I'm 17. And I was like, this guy's 17. Okay, so like he's 6 years older than I am. So we keep chatting and we're like playing the game together and all this fun stuff. And finally, I tell him, this was after like a couple of, maybe like 2 weeks of talking. I said, hey, I'm not 14, I'm 11. He was like, oh, that's kind of a long age gap to be friends. But like, I could tell he didn't just want to be friends, and that's why he was really concerned. Because I play with people, when I play Overwatch, I play with people that are like 24. That's 10 years older than I am. So like, friendships is not a big deal, but relationships are. And we'll get into that in a minute. So he's like, that's kind of a big age difference. And I was like, yeah, but I still really want to be your friend because you're really cool. He was like, yeah, I guess we can keep talking. So, in the game, one of the roles is escort. Basically, I was the escort, and I don't know what he was. He was some other character. He was like, you should escort me every single night and just not do your role. And like, not do it to the bad guys. And I was like, sure. Because I don't know if I was just a wild, freaky 11-year-old, but like, I knew what it meant, and I was like, okay. So I did it, and he's like, oh, that was really fun, we should do that some other time. And I was like, okay. But I was fine with all of it, because I was like, this is just fun. Eventually, he's like, well, I want to talk to you, not just when we're playing, and like when we can find each other online at the same time. So he's like, why don't you give me your email? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, please, I really just want to talk to you. And I was like, okay, fine. So I give him my email, because I had a personal email, because I'm like so cool. And we're talking on Google Hangouts. And I talk to this dude 24/7. Like, not really, because, you know, I gotta sleep and stuff. But I talk to this dude a lot. So I wish I still had the conversations, because I would read them and just cringe. But I like blocked the guy and stuff. I don't know if you can go back and find people that you've blocked. If you can, I might see if I can. So, sorry, I just didn't mean to flip you all off. So, I talked to this guy so much. And eventually, mind you, this man knows I am 11. This man knows he is 17. He's probably not 17. He's probably much older than 17. But even if he was 17, he knows that there is a 6-year age gap and I am 11. He says, will you be my girlfriend? Now, I knew it was a bad idea. I knew that I would get in so much trouble if my parents found out, which we'll get into later. But at 11, I just wanted someone to love. No, I wanted to be in a relationship because I'm an idiot. So I was like, yeah, let's date, which was not a good idea. So we're doing all this like, oh, I love you. Oh, I wish we could be together. I had fantasies of this guy. He lived in Canada. At least he says he lived in Canada. Coming down to my house and us going on dates. He's 17, I'm 11. That's, oh, it's so gross. So, we would pretend to be on dates and he'd come pick me up and give me kisses, and it was great. It was not great. By the way, if you don't know, I'm like a raging homosexual. I guess I wasn't always gay. I specifically remember like 2 nights before I got caught and like my parents found out, we had this like role play thing, I don't know, where like he pretended to chase me around the house and I would like run away from him, and like it was really weird. just so you know, nothing ever got sexual, which I'm really happy about. I'm really glad that it never went anywhere sexual, but it was, like, inappropriate for an 11-year-old and a 17-year-old. So one night, I was at my grandparents' house, my nana and papa's, and I had been like, okay, bye, love you, and I'd sit over at nana and papa's house. I said goodbye to my boyfriend, by the way. Boyfriend, if you can even call him that. So, I say so a lot, I'm sorry. I woke up, and I was like reading, and I went home, and this guy says, hey, you should download Steam so that we can talk on Steam. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever, because Steam doesn't cost anything. So I make an account, and we're talking, and it makes a notification sound every time you get a message from someone. And, like, we're still having, like, romantic conversations while my parents know that I'm getting notifications from something. They don't know what, though. Mind you, they can see everything I'm doing if they just walk behind me, because it's just my body in front of this desktop. So they can just, like, move and look at what I'm doing. So finally, one day, after I think it was probably like 2 months of this going on, my mom comes behind me and she starts reading the pop-ups that are coming up every time he messages me. And I'm trying to play it cool because I'm, like, mentally freaking out, because obviously I'm gonna get in so much trouble if she finds out about this. So she says to me, who's this guy? I was like, oh, he's just a friend. And she says, can I read what he's sending you? And I said, I didn't want to be like, no, you can't read it, because then she'd obviously know something was up. So I say, yeah, sure. And she starts reading it, and okay, the conversations weren't, like, super romantic, but you could, like, tell a little bit that something was going on. So I run to the bathroom, and I'm, like, shaking because I'm so nervous, because I know that I'm gonna get in trouble for this. So I come back out, and I'm in my closet, in the corner of my closet, crying because I know that I'm gonna get in so much trouble. And finally, my mom comes, and she's like, what's wrong? I said, you know what's wrong. She's like, Rennie, tell me what's wrong. And I said, I was quiet for probably like 20 minutes. And then I said, because of our conversation. Okay, this is like paraphrasing because obviously I don't remember. But I said something like, you read our conversation. She's like, yeah, and I went up to my bed. I think it was in the exact same place as it is now, which is kind of ironic. And she said, what did you do? And I said, I gave him your Facebook so that he could see what I looked like, which is awful. And in my mind, I knew that I shouldn't have done that, but I gave him my mom's full name so she could search her up on Facebook and look at pictures of me, which is horrible. Ugh, it's so horrible. And she went, what? She hadn't read any of our conversation, really, so she didn't know. I exposed myself, but in hindsight, I'm very glad that I exposed myself, because what happens if I hadn't? What would have happened if she hadn't found out? And I remember this guy saying, wow, your dad looks really scary. Here's a picture of my dad. He's pretty big and scary, I guess. And I was like, yeah, but he's really just like a giant teddy bear when you get to know him, which is actually very true. So my mom was like, you gave him what? And she ran back to the computer and read every single conversation. My dad was at work while this was happening because my mom worked from home. They're divorced now. I was like, this is all obviously not realistic anymore. But he came home from work and they read every conversation. The Steam one and all of the Google Hangout ones. And I don't think I've ever seen my dad look more furious, disappointed, and just like fearful in his life. Because what I told this guy what state I lived in. I don't think I told him the city, but I told this guy where I lived, how old I was, my full name, one of my parents' names, showed him what I look like. Like, you can't do that. That's just a no-no. Especially when you're 11 and you're talking with someone who's 17. You probably wasn't even 17. So, my dad finally sits me down and he says, "You know what you did. It's one of the worst things you ever could have done." And I said, "Yes, I know, and I'm sorry." And I don't think I gained my dad's trust back for a good 2 years. Because, and my mom's, of course, because they always kept a watchful eye on what I did. I wasn't allowed to go on that computer for like 2 years, no, maybe like a year. Because, and I wasn't allowed to play Town of Salem until like 6 months ago, when I finally asked. Yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah, that was probably, like, looking back on it, one of the scariest experiences of my life, because again, it's one of those things where, what if I hadn't stopped? What if I had told him where I live? What if he had come down? So many things could have happened. I could have been one of those statistics of this girl meets this guy online who she thinks goes to her school and is her age, and they start dating, and then she meets him at a park at 11:30 at night without telling her parents, and then she gets kidnapped. I could have been one of those kids had I not exposed myself, which is probably one of the scariest things ever. So yeah, that's my story of how I how I dated an online predator. Yeah, I guess thanks for watching. I know that, like, a lot of my friends are just gonna watch this, and I bet most of them know the story already, because I probably told them, but whatever. Thanks for watching. Bye.